science chat. We started this idea a few weeks ago when everybody started to go doing things online, obviously, as a way to still be connecting between people from river conservation side and people that are more in the science world, and to see how we can get them closer together. So we had some talks, I think 2 weeks ago, from Mate, more about his fish research, and last week we had a talk about science communication. And I think today we're kind of linking those, and we're on the side of people that actually need the scientific argument to prove that the rivers they're working on or they're fighting on have more value than only like saving nature in the sense of saving climate change by providing green energy. So we have Marieke and Dan. Marieke is from Wildwasser Erhalten Tirol, I would say, right? Yeah. And also the big boss of Free Rivers Fund, leading it. And there we have Dan. He's tuning in from 1 hour behind, on Save Our Rivers. And he's going to give some context of what he knows from his for like further campaigns brought into the fight in Utstal. Nice. I think, yeah, you can maybe just introduce yourself real quick if you want, Marieke.
Me? Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm Marieke. I live in Innsbruck, and this river we are talking about now is Utstal Ache. It's obviously pretty close to Innsbruck, or maybe not obviously to all of you. From my place, it's like half an hour drive. Yeah, we are kayakers. I work in a kayak school here. And my friend and I, we've been campaigning for rivers before, like in 2014 for a different river. And now, yeah, I think I'm just here because I'm a kayaker. Yeah.
Good reason. I would have loved to be kayaking with you right now, but I think there's some help in you not being kayaking at the moment. Same for Dan. Dan, tell us.
Yeah, so I'm probably involved in this because I'm a kayaker as well, and we set up an NGO called Save Our Rivers in 2013 to campaign against a dam project being built in Snowdonia in the National Park in Wales. And since then, we've campaigned. Probably that took us about 3 or 4 years, and we were successful. And then we've probably run another 5 or 6 campaigns within Snowdonia, within our national park, all against smaller scale hydro projects. All the first campaign was against a 5 megawatt project, and then the campaigns since then have been projects that have all been under 5 megawatts, because that's kind of one of the ceilings to trigger an EIA with the regulators where we are. So all the projects we're seeing are under 5 megawatts. And now we're trying to use some of the skills and the audience that we've gained in supporting campaigns elsewhere, like the campaign in the Uts that Marieke is in charge of. So we're just trying to provide a little bit of backup for her in terms of IT support and audience and contacts, and taking a bit of the strain off the social media side of things to allow her to concentrate on the legal aspect and the sort of local fight on the ground.
Yeah, super cool. I'm also excited how this kind of shows how collaboration can really help push a campaign forward. You guys asked me to just show the video because there's a really cool video that actually tells the whole story, so that you can focus more on the things that you find more important at the moment. So I'm going to try sharing my screen and then showing this video. Boom, boom. Just give me a few thumbs up if it actually works. Wait, yeah.
At Utstal River in Tirol in Austria, the Tumpen hydroelectric power plant is planned. The construction has started now, although there are still legal complaints pending, and during the corona curfews we didn't have any possibility to protest in public. Utstal is a very special river. It is glacier-fed and it's the largest free-flowing river in Tirol. There are several abstractions planned, plus this Tumpen power plant, which would be the first one in the river. If this one gets built, the Yates is no longer free-flowing. The Tumpen power plant has been disputed for years.
less than only 1% of Tyrolean rivers have been declared as unique by the government. In exactly such a unique part of the river, a power plant is being constructed. Rare habitats of numerous endangered species are at stake, as well as an irreplaceable recreational area.
So at first point, I want to mention the instability of the ground. Construction works can cause spontaneously appearing huge holes, disrupting the ground. This happened several times in the past and caused severe damage on houses and grounds. Further, Tumpen is a high-risk area concerning floods. The water retention caused by the power station would increase this risk drastically. So please help us to stop this project.
The Wellebrücke is one of the most famous kayaking sections in the world. To have this gem in my backyard makes it incredibly valuable for me. Kayakers from everywhere are coming to paddle the Wellebrücke. Even the Zipline World Championship was held there. The plant dam in Tumpen would mean that kayakers could not paddle this section anymore. The first part would be dry, and below it would be too dangerous to paddle because there could happen a flash flood any time, and on such a steep and difficult section, there would be life-threatening for everyone.
The damage done to people and nature stands in no relation to the small amounts of energy that could be produced. Therefore, the construction must be stopped now, and the project must be rejected for good.
Cool. Marieke, tell us more.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. This video sums it up pretty well, actually. So the first thing is that Ötztaler is it's a big river, and it's glacier fed. It's also in the video, I think, that like 13% of its catchment are glaciers. So yeah, you have these big variability in discharge, and it's a big glacier river actually. It's free flowing, and it's at the moment it's like the largest free flowing river in Tyrol, and depending on how you count, it's even the biggest glacier river in Austria, but that's sharing together with some other rivers actually. Yeah, and there are many plants planted there, and Tumpen is one of them. Tumpen is like the one that's planted in the river, but there are also abstractions planned to divert the water to different valleys. And Tumpen will be the first one now. And yeah, it could be that if they build Tumpen, then it makes it easier for the other ones to get built also. Yeah, then for the people living there, it's they want to build this reservoir in Tumpen, and that's like the part of the name is Tumpen is where they want to dam it, and Habichen is 1 kilometer downstream where they want to put the water back to the riverbed. And up there, you have the problem that it's an old landslide. Like a few hundred years ago, there was huge landslides. And now Tumpen, the little village, it has got like a few hundred inhabitants or so. It sits on top of this very loose material, and now if you disturb the ground, if there's water going into the ground, they are afraid that like huge sinkholes would open. And that actually happened in the past. Like they had sinkholes of the size of like 10,000 cubic meters, and like really huge. So this is why yeah, this citizens initiative was built, because they are just afraid that they get flood risk and these sinkholes, and it's all gonna get really dangerous in their place. Yeah, and then ecologically, this section that's gonna get dammed, so it's a run-of-river power plant. So they're just making a small reservoir, they're taking the water out, and just 1 kilometer downstream they put it back in. But this 1 kilometer is of really high ecological value, and it's, yeah, you don't have so much of this in Austria anymore. This is why none of us actually understands how it's possible to build this plant there, because there's the good ecological reasons why they shouldn't be building it. Yeah, and then from a kayaker's perspective, you have Wellerbrücke just below the dam. So not just below, but you have a very steep section that's Afstürze just below the dam, and that will have less water. And then the water comes back in, and then you have Wellerbrücke, where they have zigline race, and very famous section. And there the problem is that you have they have to flush the basin. Like you have this basin, and Ötztaler Ache, because it's a really big river and it's got very high sediment load. Then you have the basin there, and this basin is quite small, so it will fill up pretty quickly. And they have to flush the basin once a week. And if they do this in the season where the kayakers are on Wellerbrücke, it's getting really dangerous because the water level
That seems to be Marieke going, huh? Or is she still there for you guys?
No, I can't hear her anymore.
Oh, she's frozen.
But meanwhile, maybe Marianne can complete the story, because you're also, Marianne Götz is also really into the topic, just as you said.
Yes, please, if you're, yeah.
I will take over, Marieke, until she returns. So what you were just saying is that they have to flood this regularly, and this is very, I mean, it's not kayaker's perspective. I'm from the WWF, as you might have seen in the video, so I'm more on the ecological things. But I've talked to her about this a lot also, that it's getting life-threatening to impossible to kayak this section anymore because of the regular floodings, and also because the waves that come because of the irregular flow can cause spontaneous waves downstream, even much further downstream, that can cause severe damage, and that can even kill kayakers if they are not aware of this danger at the moment that they're paddling down there. And this is very sad, because I don't have to tell you all, since you're all, most of you, I guess, kayakers, that this is a very important section, and this would be a great loss. And it's also simply not understandable how it can happen in this region, because also they also depend on the tourism, and not majorly on the kayakers, but on many other things, and they also advertise their natural rivers. And yes, from an ecological point of view, this is the 0.6% that has been described as unique. So it was a political decision that they made this power plant here, because one of the main drivers behind the power plant is the mayor of one of the communities, and he's also one of the most important persons of the Conservative Party in Tirol. And he's very powerful, and he wants to get this dam, and he wants to get this hydropower plant, which is why they have been able to drive it that far. And we are campaigning against it, the WWF, since 8 years, and Marieke and Dan have joined in recently with so much power, and it's really great. They are the main drivers in all this, I would say. I'm really grateful for that. I'm really thankful for that. Oh yes, of course. Sorry. Yeah, but I think something she said it all. So.
Yeah, cool. I think this is a cool point to maybe pass it over to Dan for a bit, because indeed what you said, like the arguments are there. I think a lot of this audience quite understands that a dam shouldn't be built, and that there's a context around it, but that there's still a reason to fight against dams. But this all started, the construction started happening when the coronavirus started hitting the country, right? And I don't know, how did it go? Dan, did Marieke give you a call, or like?
Well, I can
add one more thing? I'm sorry for
Sure.
interrupting. Just one thing that is important about this dam that we haven't mentioned yet is it's very strange that they are starting to build this, even though the legal procedure is still ongoing. So it still occurs. It has not been fully discussed. There are still pending complaints from the WWF, but also from the Citizens Initiative. And it's a really scandal that they started constructing this, even though it's not finished, it's not decided. And they say, well, if they decide against it in the end, we just have to undo it all again, which is bullshit because right now they're already doing big damage to the area. Thanks.
Yeah, good point. Dan, how do you get involved?
I can't remember where I saw it first, whether Marieke contacted me first or I saw it on social media somewhere or from some friends that live there. But obviously, as soon as I saw it, I got in touch with Marieke, who I know through kayaking and snowboarding and skiing and stuff, but also through working on Free Rivers Fund together as well. So our sort of main concern was due to the nature of the audience that we've built up around sections of river that are important for kayaking. We had quite a large sort of social media audience that are quite engaged in those sort of actions already. And we felt that this river was relevant to our audience because it's of European importance as opposed to just being locally important to people from Austria. I think it's a pretty sort of world famous river, which sort of demands attention from certainly across Europe or around the world. So we were quite keen to leverage our audience and direct them in the right area to be able to support the campaign that was going on there already. And then speaking to Marieke about it, we realized that obviously the guys out there on the ground have got quite a lot on their plates already in terms of trying to deal with the political situation and trying to deal with that without being able to go and visit anybody because of the coronavirus lockdown. And that if we could take any of the sort of do any sort of assistance in terms of the more remote work that we could do to take the strain off the people out there on the ground seemed really, really valuable. So for instance, the video that you just watched, that was something that we were able to put together in an afternoon, just asking for some clips from the people who spoke. And then we've got some friends who are kayakers living in the valley that we were able to send out to get the footage to fit around that. Although, unfortunately, they got fined by the police for breaking curfew. So we've also got to sort some money out for some fines at some point to pay those guys back for doing that for us. So yeah, we were able to put the video together. We were able to talk with Marieke around how we were going to target the social media strategy, around what the calls to action would be. And a petition had already been set up. So we first of all, we shared the petition out, and I think we hit, from a petition of a couple of hundred signatures at the beginning, I think we hit something like 16 or 17,000 signatures within a week or so, which was pretty good for the audience that we were trying to reach there. And we did that by producing social media assets from photographers that we could ask to work on the ground and videographers that we could ask to work on the ground. And then also asking sort of social media influencer kayakers, so the guys that are with the big social media followings, 50,000 plus people on Instagram, asking them to share out, providing a media asset pack and a social media asset pack to those guys so they could just share it out really easily. They didn't have to go for a lot of effort. But then we ended up with, sort of all the international Red Bull athletes and things like that sharing out the story, which I think was really good for getting signatures. And then the next step in the campaign was to move over to an email writing campaign, which is something that we do a lot with our campaigns in Snowdonia. We tend not to do petitions because we find that they're relatively ineffective, but they're good for that initial engagement. And this one is basically the email campaign that ran out was along the lines of, there was two different ones. We ran one in German through WET and one in English through Save Our Rivers to try and get as wide an audience as possible. And that revolved around the concern of the construction starting during a coronavirus lockdown and around the, despite outstanding legal objections, but it also focused on the Water Framework Directive issues around the project as well. Because it seems it's a bit of a weird one, so it seems pretty clear to me and my understanding of Water Framework Directive that the project at Tumpen fairly obviously breaks Water Framework Directive and isn't eligible for a derivation, so or for an exemption, however you would phrase it. And so the emails were also worded around telling the politicians involved in the decision making that we were aware that the dam had legal question marks over it. We felt that it was breaking European-based environmental legislation, and therefore it should be stopped for those reasons. So it's sort of telling those politicians that we're aware of what they're doing is legally dubious and like them to stop doing it. So is the gist of it. And those are the two steps that we've done so far. And Marieke and I were discussing today where we're going to go next with that aspect of the campaign. But that's where we've got to, as is.
Okay, we'll talk about that one a bit later, because I think it's actually interesting what's brewing in your minds there. What I'm quite curious about, because I got an email back, and I think I hope many of you actually wrote an email in the campaign, because I think it indeed, like, a lot of people know about the campaign. And the answer back, honestly, I read it and it was like this whole, it was in German, so I needed a bit of mind, but it kind of said, okay, we've got the strategy to go against climate change. And it kind of made sense. I had a moment that I felt like, oh, well, I guess they've got their plan ready, you know? And like instantly after I realized, okay, but they didn't give an answer at all about the biodiversity they're ruining, about the nature. But that is kind of how they think, like, well, how should we tackle this? How should we get them actually?
I think it's a real worry, because basically the answer from the email, and this has happened in other cases as well, and we've seen this in campaigns we fought here, is when you say you're breaking Water Framework Directive by continuing with this project, the answer just seems to be, yeah, but hydropower. And there's an assumption that any form of renewable energy generation gives you permission to break Water Framework Directive, and it doesn't, according to the letter of the law. There, it shouldn't do that. There should be an overriding public interest. You should be able to justify that the power that you generate is required, and it cannot be achieved in an alternative, less damaging method without incurring disproportionate costs. And
No, he's like, Marieke is back, which froze Dan.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay though.
WWF have written an amazing report on future energy requirements within Tyrol, and have proved that this dam isn't required to meet all energy targets. So there's no reason that this one should meet Water Framework Directive at all. But there's just this sort of assumption that if you're creating renewable energy, then you get to break it with impunity.
Yeah, Marieke is back also. I got the question. We're definitely open for questions in a bit. I have one more question before we move on too fast. Because you said already, like, you had a chat yesterday about, like, okay, what could be next steps? Do you have any ideas? Where are your thoughts leading you? And could you use any help, especially in the scientific world?
Is this a Marieke one or a me one, or a both?
Whoever feels like answering. Maybe Marieke, because you've been talking and Marieke's back.
Yeah. What was your question again?
Next steps.
Well, next. Yeah. Well, what maybe Dan told you already, I don't know. We started an email campaign some days ago, which was addressed to the local government, and then now they wrote us something back, and now we need to reply we did. And now what we want to do is, addressing the next letter actually to the Austrian government, because the problem is that in Tyrol the government is, well, more or less doing what they want. Like they have they have a lot of power actually, and even if the authorities, like the official authorities, say they don't want something, then the governor can still run over everything. So that's why my feeling is that it's difficult to tackle all this on a local scale. So that's why I think it's best to go to the one step higher, to the Austrian government. And this is what we are thinking about right now, or what I've been doing all day, like figuring out how to address the Austrian government with this problem and start a new email campaign, because we need the local media to get involved. And actually, I think if we want to achieve something, then we need international media attention for this.
Cool. We got, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I suppose on top of that, the only other step as well is we've been talking about, and it's whether there's any way of whether this should be escalated to a complaint to the ECJ about Water Framework Directive as well, because there's a legal option to do that.
For ECJ, just to make it easy for everyone, is the European.
So the European Court. So if Water Framework Directive is broken, then you can make a complaint to the European Court about that. It doesn't stop development if there was an objection pending, but it's even if the objection isn't upheld, it's a real pain in the ass for the Tyrolean government and the Austrian government to be dealing with a complaint. So it's just the threat of a complaint or the actuality of a complaint in process is definitely a deterrent for the developer, and it's a deterrent for the regulator as well. Cool.
I just got a question in from Valbona actually, I think. Catherine asked, just out of curiosity, what kind of legal complaints are pending? National, administrative, international, mechanics? And I think that's a bit because it's quite a parallel to what's happening in Valbona Valley, right? There's also a hydropower plant built, even though legal complaints were pending. Marieke, you've been there also, so you know the situation there, and then Utstal.
Yeah, so there's two complaints pending. One is against the nature, what do they call it? Nature license thing, and one against the water right license. And it's different levels. One is at state level, so in Tyrol, and one is on national level.
Cool.
So yeah, kind of on national level, trying everything that's possible. Yeah.
Just a quick update to that. The one pending complaint from the Citizen Initiative, we just heard that they rejected it, the court rejected it. So the last pending complaint is from the WWF in the nature. Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Is it better now?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, maybe it's because the micro is in there and not in my laptop. So I was just saying that the two pending complaints, I have to correct myself on that, because we just got informed, and I haven't even talked to Marieke about that yet, that the complaint from the Citizen Initiative was rejected. So they do not have any further rights in the legal procedure. The only one still remaining in the fight against this on the legal basis is the WWF now in the nature procedure. And here we are trying to get this up to the European level again. We already have years ago. That is also an important and interesting fact about this hydropower plant, is that this was the case where it was decided that the Aarhus Convention on including communities and environmental organizations have to be transformed into national law also in Austria, and it has to be implemented. And before we had that at court, Austria did not follow in a good way this Aarhus Convention, and we brought this up to court, the European level, and then they said, okay, now you have party position, and before we didn't, and this is also part of this whole complex structure, why it could happen that they have a nature rights license from 2016, but then we brought in the complaint that we should have been a party in this. And then afterwards, the European court said, yes, they're right, there should have been a party. And then we were, and we brought in the complaint, and it was all discussed afterwards, and there have been many changes. But still, they are building this now because they have the old nature license from 2015, which they are building and basing the constructions on now.
Cool. Thanks for the insight. It's quite scary to see how often rules are just bent in a way that is ideal for the people that can earn money from it, right? Before we move to much more, I just want to show how this suddenly constructing during curfew times is not only happening in Austria, but also actually in Bosnia. Milos is here.
Yeah, hello to you.
Hi.
Well, yeah, sure. We have those problems here in Bosnia. Actually, not just one, but at the time we have 3 mini small hydropower plants which are built in our country. And yesterday we get some sort of response from the ministry that all of these 3, they don't have permissions, and only concession agreements are the ones that investors are having in their possession, but they don't have any other permission for the construction or the ecological ones. So basically, right now we are trying to focus on, since we are not allowed to do anything on the field because of the curfew and because of this coronavirus pandemic issues that we are all facing, we are trying to press criminal charges against the investor, and we are trying basically to somehow get to the public with these informations, because we cannot do anything on the field, but we are trying to focus on social media, just as Dan mentioned, that those are, let's say, the only channels that we can use in order to get to the public right now, because mainstream media are also focusing more onto these pandemic issues. So, well, I don't know what more to tell you, because I don't want to take a lot of time. So I'm not going to get into the details, but more or less all of these 3 small hydropower plants that I mentioned are under 5 megawatts, basically between 4 and 5 megawatts. So that's basically it. Yeah, if you have any questions, I'm also here to answer, to provide more details. I will send you one article about these cases. So it's on English, I suppose. It will. Oh, I sent it. So you can get more about what we have done so far. But yeah, it was written like 5 or 6 days ago. So now we have these informations about the permissions that investor don't have. So we are going with the press charges. That's it.
Cool. I think that shows how, like, we shouldn't just chill out during this curfew time, right? Like, this is happening around the world still. And the Untitled, in a sense, lucky to have Marieke not being able to go to Corsica at the moment and just having time to spend on this campaign. Hey, I see a few questions coming in. It's Piali? Piali, did I say that well? She asked how to increase awareness of environmental awareness amongst local communities. Can you maybe introduce yourself and tell us a bit why this question is coming up now? I don't see you. Piali? Not there. Quite a general question, I would say, but quite important, huh? Marieke, how do you see this? Because I think you're mostly creating awareness together with Dan amongst the kayaking community, right? Like that's also why Free Rivers Fund was set up. How do you get more people that are normally already out in nature? How do you get them involved into actually standing up for the rivers?
It's actually pretty difficult. Because all these, like in Austria, there are several big hydro companies, and this TVAC is now ours in Tyrol. And all of them, they've been lobbying for hydropower for decades. So people really believe that it's a clean energy, and they think it's a solution for climate change and everything. Yeah, so it's really hard to teach them that it's sometimes the case, maybe, but not always. Yeah, so it's in this case, we are like, we have our audience and people we can address what we want to say to, but what we need in Tyrol definitely is these bigger organizations who go on and on for years and bring this topic up again and again, because we have our jobs to do also, and we can't spend all our life in educating the people, and it's really a big issue. Can you hear me actually, or is the sound too bad? Because you all look like you don't actually understand what I'm saying.
I think it's good.
Yeah. Okay.
You've worked in a classroom, probably. Imagine being in front of a classroom where people are, and now it's just screens, huh?
Yeah.
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 Maybe
so that's
question is, Piali. Now you have another chance. You were writing. Whoops. Doesn't really work. But I'm writing to someone private. So, Milos, how are you doing this? Like, are the local people around the power plants actually involved, or is it more you trying to?
Well, basically talking about two of the cases that I mentioned, we basically, we learned about them from the local guy. He approached us, and he didn't have any of the informations related to the project. He didn't knew anything about the concession, about the permissions. He didn't knew anything about what permits investor needs to have or something. Basically, he only knew that the machines came and that the construction is starting, and that basically he's the one, that guy who approached us first. He's the guy who he's having some sort of I don't know some sort of land there near the river, you know. So the machines were approaching to the area over his land. So that was the, let's say, the first thing that basically sparkled the match there, because he was frustrated because of the machines on his land, and he was scared that the investor is going to take some of his land. And basically investor approached him with the money. He wanted to give him some money in order not to do anything against to harm the project. So, and he approached us, the Coalition for Protection of Rivers in Bosnia, and he told us that something is going on, because we didn't have any opportunity to know what is going there, because that area is in the middle of nowhere, basically. You know, there is some local community, but it's like maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 houses near the river in that area. So, and most of these people are older people, and they are not allowed to go outside during this curfew. And he was the only one basically who could approach the river, take the photos, take the videos. So he really did a good job there, because if there wasn't, if we didn't have him, we wouldn't do anything now. So basically we are always trying to work with the local people. But that third case that I mentioned, there is no one in the area. There are no local people. It's basically in the middle of nowhere. So there is no people around there. There is no any constructions around there. It's really like untouched nature. And there we had the information from some sort of, I don't know, some people from the ministry basically, who are against these hydro projects, and they are providing us some information, you know, from behind the line. So they gave us the info, and we also, I don't know, we tried to investigate about the permissions, about the concession agreements, and we discovered that investor there also don't have any permissions. So we also press charges against him. So we are always trying to work with the local people, but we face these projects where in those areas there is no any local people, and then we need to, I don't know, we are trying to fight it from, I don't know, from our sides. We are trying to approach we are trying to reach those areas to go there, but this time when we are not allowed to travel around the country, I don't know, we are trying to do whatever we can, and to try to, I don't know, do something in order to prevent those projects.
Yeah, cool. Definitely makes times more challenging, right? Hey, I'm gonna go through some questions that popped up through the time, and I think this one's mostly directed to Marieke/Dan from Yates. How can we support this movement? I think we've got a whole audience here with partly scientific people, partly just people that really want to get out in the streets, even though they can't at the moment. What can we actually do?
Me first, and then Dan, maybe. Well, I think the best way right now is to actually bring it to the international media. So whoever has any contacts to their local media, it's good to place the issue there. Yeah, because right now it's not so much about expertise and not so much about writing statements or something, because the whole, like the normal legal process is more or less done, and now all we can do is put pressure on the authorities by media work.
Cool. Dan, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. It's about finding a way to reach outside the bubble of people that we've already hit. So predominantly that's going to be needing to be, to put political pressure on, that's going to need to be people within Austria. So people outside of the outdoor sports community within Austria are the people that we need to reach. So that's going to be through traditional media or through social media channels that reach audiences that are not directly associated with sort of outdoor sports communities. So environmentalists, or people who like hiking, or just general residents that we're missing with our social media is really good at shouting really loud into a bubble, but it's getting beyond that original bubble is the tricky thing. So yeah, traditional media and social media contacts outside of the immediate group of people that we're talking to already.
Good point, because I guess we're quite in a bubble here also with people that are already interested and already kind of following, so it's kind of up to us all to talk about it more, also with the friends that we don't expect to really like this campaign. Catherine, you wanted to ask something. Trying to unmute.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I thought this was worth saying in person rather than but it's just occurring to me because there are so many campaigns around Balkans and Europe against hydropowers, but we run into this here just within Albania all the time, that people say, you know, we try to reach out for international media and we get this message back and say, oh yeah, we did Albania, we did Vjosa, so there's no more time for any more hydropower in Albania or something. And so it's just, I'm suddenly thinking, you know, and those Vjosa and Valbona are only 2 of probably 7 active campaigns within Albania. So if only Albania has, the hydropowers are competing against each other for this attention, and then you exponential that to the Balkans, and then you exponential that to Europe, like how can we all combine to sort of have a broad, this isn't a question anybody's going to answer now, but I just thought maybe some of us should be talking about how to get, because everybody needs international attention, but once there's, you know, 500 international articles each about specific ones, this seems like a conundrum, which it sounds like Dan,
especially now, say like, oh, we need international attention to the Utstal. Actually, we also need it to Bosnia, what Milos just told us, and we definitely still need it to Valbona. I think in a sense for Europe's Friend is already doing a good job on that, just showing how often this happens around the world. If somebody's got a really smart answer on this, they can come. Otherwise, I start with a new question. Yeah.
Hang on. It might not be really smart, but I think one step that we want that would be really good to see across Europe is to see, and WWF are starting with this, but to see all the big conservation bodies basically specifically excluding hydropower when they talk about hitting renewable goals. So hearing that from WWF or, you know, Greenpeace or whoever the big, you know, the big conservation players with the large audiences being very specific when they talk about countries hitting their renewable targets this year, or, you know, countries making new renewable targets and how fantastic there is. There was a really huge, Greenpeace ran a really big praising sort of statement about Costa Rica running entirely on renewable energy now, but it, you know, conveniently forgetting that the vast majority of that is hydropower, and there have been some really horrific human rights abuses against indigenous communities and local people in Costa Rica in the achievement of that hydropower total that they produce. And it'd be really good to see hydropower removed, you know, separated from energy saving and separated from solar and separated from wind that way. And I think that would help the media argument a lot.
Yeah, because this is definitely the argument that came back on our emails, right? And Ellie just asked a question whether, because this email was totally the idea, like we actually need to reduce CO2. So that's what we do. We're helping nature by building this plant. Marieke, does it make sense to still reply to this email? Question from Ellie.
I think, yeah, it's good, but don't expect that it will help anything. Like, yeah, I mean, it would add to pissing them off actually, but not more. So if you got more important things to do, then better don't do that, and maybe wait for our next email campaign, which is coming up this week, hopefully.
Yeah, cool. Sonja, where are you? Because you're a Flus reporter. That sounds like you could have some outreach. And you asked to Milos, who is building and who is financing these plants. Where are you, Sonja, by the way? It's cool too.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I just turned my phone off and my video just to, because the connection, the internet connection was so bad anyway. So I thought maybe it's better. Yeah. I wanted to ask Milos where these construction areas are in Bosnia.
Well, as I said, all of these construction areas are in some, let's call them, well, they are not abandoned communities, but they are basically communities in which people are not living in that, I don't know how to say it, but a lot of people are moving from these areas, you know, and those villages are staying all alone without people. Only older ones are living there, and investors are trying to use it as their advantage when constructing these projects, because there is no people who can go outside and do any kind of blockades or anything on the field. And people who are not people who are not somehow able to do anything about it, because they don't know that they can do something, you know, because most of these elders are most of them are thinking that they cannot do anything, and they are not trying to do anything, basically, because from the communist part of our history, they somehow learned that they cannot do anything against the government, and they don't know that those people are not the government, actually. And in these three cases that I mentioned, investors are local ones, and they are all somehow related to the political party who is now having a majority in entity of, because here in Bosnia we have two entities. So in one entity, they have the majority. So basically all of these investors are somehow related to this political party. And I think their finances are not coming from any of the commercial banks or whatsoever, but because these projects are small ones, they are trying to finance it from their own, I suppose, finances. So I don't know if I anyhow answered your question.
And I'm sure Milos will be happy to answer more questions if that runs into an article, right? But yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Milos. I just found on the website you gave us that there is a location link to the power plants. Yes, yeah, I would love to go there, but as you said, if not even you can move around the country at the moment, it's quite difficult. Yeah.
Hey, it's almost 7. I'm just have this curious question in my head, because we're kind of trying to link science to river conservation, right? What kind of science that you use in this campaign till now, and do you have the feeling there are some parts missing or some things that you could really use?
Yeah, we just a day ago actually asked a friend, a kayaker, to do a hydromorphologic study actually, to figure out like how this basin flushing is gonna work and how big the flood is gonna be and things. And this proved really important also in the last thing we did against this Zellrhein-Silz hydropower plant. That's something people very often forget, like this flushing of this intake things. Yeah, so the problem is, like really the problem is to find somebody who is who's got the balls to speak up actually, because these people are risking their jobs when they do a study for us. And we've been asking around quite a lot, and then we found this one kayaker, and luckily he's really good at what he's doing there, and he's brave enough to write a study for us. But it's yeah, it's really not easy, because it's like the community is really linked, and if you don't work for a hydro plant, then you may still be dependent in some way that yeah, they ask you to work for you or something. And if you get a bad reputation because you've been doing something against the hydro plant, then it's really difficult, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just how important it is to have a community of scientists that are actually caring about free-flowing rivers, right? Which is what we kind of hope to be. Ali asked, I think this is the same in Tirol. The government and the ruling party is really involved in. Oh, this was to me privately. Okay, so yeah, the government and the ruling party is really involved in the dam construction, but Green Party is also in the Tyrolean government. What is their standpoint? As in the Green Party, are they doing anything against it?
Well, I think they have a bit different priorities. Maybe Mariano also knows a bit about it and can interrupt me if I'm talking crap, but there are different environmental issues in Tyrol, and that's something like the highways and transportation and air quality and things. And I got the feeling that they quite often have kind of a trade-off, so that they want to be good at this air pollution topic, and then they say, okay, we don't care so much about the hydro part. So far, they haven't been a really good support, actually.
Yeah, I guess those kind of Green parties can only go for it if there's enough like momentum behind it, which is us, which is a lot of people just really showing the world that we don't stand for hydropower, right? So the more people really believe in it, the easier it will be for a Green Party to actually stand up. I see Anna wanting to add something to this.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting, because half a year ago there was a big movement in Tyrol with lots of people participating against the extension of skiing areas. Also the WWF was campaigning against actually in Ötztal, Pitztal, there was the plan to connect to skiing areas. So the people in Tyrol are very passionate about the protection of mountains, not so much rivers. And I think it would be a good idea to connect the both of them, to say that the Ötztaler Alpen, the Ötztal Alps they are one of the wildest places in Austria. They are our biggest Alps, highest mountains there. And there are a lot of protection areas actually in the Ötztal Alps. So we could kind of say, let's make a national park out of this kind of scattered protection areas, which are kind of nature parks and birds protection areas and so on. And then the Ötztaler Ache is kind of the outlet of this national park, as it kind of drains the whole area. And we should not forget that it's not the only hydropower plant in this alpine area. There are two big pump storage plants, which are maybe going to be built in the next couple of years. So actually we could kind of try, of course it's important to fight Tumpen, but we could try to kind of turn the public opinion about this whole area as a whole, to say, hey, let's take another route, let's go for a greener and more sustainable future, and let's try to promote ecotourism and so on, the old story. But maybe right now would be a good time, because in Tyrol there's a lot of criticism of the conventional tourism. So maybe there's a chance that the government even sees a perspective in being a little bit more progressive, to say, okay, we are not going to not only build none of these hydropower plants, we are also going to remove the Brunauer Weir, which is a really dangerous barrier at the outlet of the Ötztaler Ache, which is really dangerous for kayakers and rafters and so on, and it has no usage except now, since the climate change, farmers need this barrier to get water for the apples, but we could kind of try to say, okay, there's another solution to get water. And right now, Tiwag, the hydropower company, just wants to adapt this weir. They want to build a fish passage. But it would be cool to tell them, hey, let's take it out and none of these other projects, and go for another future and, yeah, more sustainable one. Yeah, that's my statement.
I totally agree that this is a good idea. I just think it needs a bit of manpower, kind of. But definitely, yeah.
I guess if anyone gets motivated by this, either get in touch with Anna or get in touch with Marieke and bring in your thoughts, and maybe something can happen from this. A last question, maybe, which also might help a bit. Piali, who's been trying to ask a question for a while. She's from India, also trying to set up campaigns and using arguments. if you have all those arguments ready, like, then how do you start? How do you, because you've worked quite a bit in Wales and you're trying also to change the public opinion there, right? Do you have the feeling it's kind of working, that more people are really against hydropower, and do you feel that is actually changing a thing now in Wales?
Yeah, I mean, certainly within our national park, the narrative is completely different now. So in 2013, when we started, there was definitely this hydropower scheme will bring jobs, it will bring renewable energy, and therefore we want to do it, to almost unanimous public opposition to any new hydro being built in our area. So it's taken about 6 years of doing public events and film events that we do for free. It's a lot of messaging around kind of catchy figures that you can do that people remember. Like, only, you know, in the UK, only 1% of our rivers are completely free flowing now, but we only produce 1% of our total electricity consumption by hydropower. So that's like a super catchy, almost like an internet meme that you can use to have these numbers that stick in people's minds, that allow them to sort of understand the issue. I think a lot of people who are not super tied to understanding rivers through sport or through being interested in ecology are interested in producing renewable energy in the most efficient, cheapest, best way. And I think it's pretty good to try and point out the disadvantages in hydropower with that. For instance, in Tyrol, like, one of the real big issues is that so much of the renewable basket is produced by hydropower, and that's not resilient to climate change in terms of reducing snowpack and retreating glaciers. So a more diverse renewable basket is important there. In India, there will be other arguments around loss of habitat that people use for subsistence farming or gathering methods, or fisheries that people are reliant on for their protein intakes, or different arguments against hydropower in each place, and you've just got to find out what's important to people in that area. I know Luigi's probably got a similar set of arguments for the communities that live around the Marignon about the impacts that hydropower will have on them, and it's leveraging the local community with the arguments that are most important to them in that specific location.
Actually, I wanted just to ask that question. It's nice to see you, Dan.
Nice to
funny not being on the river, but yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how do you guys feel like? Because it seems like here we have social arguments and even like nature arguments, and tourism and recreation are not even considered, since we're just such a minority, right? So it's crazy just to see how in Austria, in that river where the sea line has been so many years, and people have been seeing how big of an event and how people can use that section for recreation and even for, you know, tourism and the economy. They still don't even consider that. So yeah, it's not really hopeful for like the recreation argument, the kayaking side of it, right? Like, some people might see it like, oh, these guys just want to go play. So seems like the social or natural arguments are stronger. But what do you guys think about it? Like, what's the strongest argument to fight for, right? We can't stay on the kayaking recreational side. It doesn't really look like it works like here or in Ecuador, right? Like, such a lot of people kayaking in Ecuador, and they are still a minority, and the indigenous towns are the ones that actually make the difference, right?
Yeah, for sure. I think here what we've been trying to do is show that although we're like a kayaker-based organization at the beginning, we're trying to tell the story that it's kayaking that's led us to understand that rivers are important. Not that we think rivers are important for kayaking, but it's the story's the other way around. We understand rivers are important because we kayak on them. And now I think, you know, our audience within Save Our Rivers is probably, I don't know, 25% kayakers. We have a big fisherman following, hikers. You know, it's generally people who enjoy the outdoors still, but it's a much more diverse following that we have now, and I think that's because we try and be really quiet on the kayaking story. Although we reached that audience, we're also trying to, when we run campaigns here, we tend to leave that towards the back end of our objections and really push for us, it's always the ecological argument that we go for. But I think in other countries, particularly where you're based, Luigi, the social argument is probably a more important one.
Yeah, here it is for sure. More people like consider the human aspect, how it will impact the people that depend on the river, and that connection is way more obvious, right?
Yeah, and I think that'll be the same for the person who asked the question from India as well. I think probably the social and the economic impacts on local people would be the one that I would say would be the most important there as well.
And I guess that leads back into a bit telling the story of the river, right? It's not only just finding the arguments, but being able to communicate them. In case you want to hear more, look back to last week's video. We had somebody talking about communication. I'm happy to talk a bit longer until my mom is waiting for dinner for me, which will be a bit longer. In principle, we're already way past time, so don't feel bad about tuning out. I'm also happy to just say, quick advertisement for next week. We'll have 3 National Geographic explorers actually talking about their research. So they chose to protect rivers through really diving into research, doing PhD studies, going out on the river, doing a lot of measurements. So that will be pretty cool. They're going to talk about how the river is connected to the ocean and how, like, they do plastic pollution, for instance, research. So that would be quite cool. So anyone that wants to go, goodbye. Thanks for joining in. Anyone that wants to stay, I'm happy to still chat for a bit. Mike, that's really nice to you, waving. Thanks for all.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Sonia, who has the recording, as I missed a large part of it because of the internet breaking down? You, Vera?
Semra is recording all of it.
Okay, I'll send you an email with the link tonight.
Okay, do you see my email address here? I just wrote it in the chat box.
I do. I'll say it.
Yeah, okay, that would be great. Do you think you could do it today or tomorrow morning?
I'll do. It takes a few hours, but
yeah, okay.
Okay. I'll send it tonight.
Yeah, great. Because I'm just writing a story about the Untitled power plant project, and I could add some information maybe from today's chat. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Well, I didn't tell anyone this was going to be recorded and that people might end up on the reps. Sorry. For you, it's all okay, I hope. Otherwise, you can still.
Yeah, no, I will not use it only for background information.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, okay. No, don't worry. I'm not using anything.
No, but I will.
Before I didn't ask. Okay, thank you.
Cool. All people that still stayed, are you having questions? Do you have something to ask? Ombelien, you're still here. What are your thoughts? Ombelien was going to conduct a research on the Sava during the Balkan Rivers tour, which would have kicked off a few days ago, but didn't. But she doesn't really seem to be here. Curious how many people just pretended to be here without video.
Yeah, funny. No, it's actually a good time. It's nice to see you, Marieke and Dan. And I think that campaign really worked out. As you say, still like 16,000 people. That's quite a lot of people, and more than just kayakers and people that work on rivers like we do, I guess. You got me signing and sending the email, and that was the first time ever I was doing that. even though that Vera translated me the answer a bit, but it was just like not really nice thing, right? Like not really hopeful. Like seems like they just do that template and answer the same thing to everybody, and like you say, that seems like just getting into that legal side and political side is the one that actually can make a change, right? You can talk straight to somebody, one of those guys.
I think that's where, when we talk about, you know, answering the question from India as well, it's really difficult. I don't know, maybe you've got more understanding of a slightly more opaque political system than we have, Luigi, in terms of it's pretty easy for us to get to directly speak to our politicians. They might not agree with us and they might ignore us, but, you know, at least we've got that sort of contact and that a pretty robust democratic system set up. And, you know, how you go about doing that in India is tricky. And, you know, you can see through the campaigns that you follow that it's harder in the Balkans than it is in Western Europe, and it's probably a lot harder in Peru than it is in the Balkans, and it's probably harder in
corruption is a big factor also, but I'm not sure how that big of a thing is in Europe or the UK. I don't think that bad, right?
Yeah, I mean, corruption here is really different. It's nobody. I don't think anybody's building hydro schemes in the UK because they expect to profit financially, like, you know, corrupt politicians are doing it like that. But there's definitely an aspect of people doing what they think sounds right for political gain, and doing it in terms of, you know, you see environmental regulators that then go and get a job with a hydro company like afterwards when they retire and stuff like that. So it's still corruption, but it's lower level and it's slightly more, I don't know, like it's like more, I suppose it's like low key corruption.
I was going to say, because exactly the fact what Marieke said, like no researcher wants to back up this whole idea what we have that shows that there is this kind of corruption, right? Like apparently it's dangerous to speak out your opinion, which is not necessarily money related directly, but still definitely not fully freedom.
I think what you get is when you get developers writing environmental impact assessments or getting ecological surveys done, they're going to pick an ecologist to write, or a hydromorphologist, or you know, to write an assessment for their project. And for most kind of ecologists that don't work for conservation bodies, that's their bread and butter work, isn't it? They get commissioned to write ecology reports or habitat assessments or whatever for developers. And if you're seen to stick your head out in a campaigning way, that kind of work could dry up like pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely is like this here, but it's also even worse because they pick somebody and then they're gonna write what the company needs, and even if it's obviously nonsense, then it's still gonna work. And that's something I really don't understand. Like, I'm in Tirol, I'm obviously a foreigner, and where I come from, things work differently. Yeah, and like in the beginning, I was pretty impressed, like how things work here, because it's a different kind of corruption, but some politicians can just do whatever they want. And if the public opinion says this is not going to work, then they just wait for a year or two, and then people will forget, and then they just go ahead. It's pretty bad, actually.
Guess that's Marieke gone again. Anselm wanted.
No, am I gone?
You're still.
Oh no, she's back. She's back.
You have to believe, Marieke, believe in the people, believe in the institutions. I think, I mean, the Green Party is kind of split because, of course, they have to make a lot of concussions now with the government, and yeah, they argue with fighting climate change. But it's yeah, there are also lots of people in the Green Party who have another opinion. So maybe there's a chance that they kind of, yeah, follow our arguments. I think there are hopefully some within.
Yes, the more people reasonable, it,
I hope.
Yeah. I was scared, like in the Netherlands, there was now this idea, or there is a plan to reduce like emissions, so that building can continue easier again, because there's too much emissions in construction, so we can't construct anymore. So now they made the plan for to really cut down emissions, with the argument that economy can continue after the pandemic. So it's not. in the politics, they don't even dare to say we're actually standing here for nature and we want to save the climate. No, because that would be scary, because that would be like not taking care of the economy at the moment in this whole crisis, right? No, it's actually for economy, so it's all good. It's so weird. At least they're doing good things in a way, but it's just they're scared of even using the argument nature.
I think that's a really good point. I think also Sonia wrote it, and I think that's a point that also WWF always stresses, that fighting climate change needs to be in line with protecting nature, and it cannot mean that we kind of exploit natural resources or our natural environment, because then we also accept from the argument that it's complete nonsense, but it also kind of weakens our resilience. Or, for example, with this, all of this hydropower plants, they kind of those are areas that are naturally really dry. They don't have a lot of precipitation. So especially the pump storage plants would hold back a lot of from various different catchments. They take all the small streams and kind of all divert them into this reservoir, and then the whole area is much drier afterwards. And this is also a point that maybe would be interesting, especially in Tyrol, to kind of discuss who has the power over water, who is the owner of the water there, because actually it's our water, and Tiwag, I mean, it's owned by the Tyrolean state, so, but still it's a company, and then they can control it. And I have this kind of story from farmers, because now with climate change, they always have the cows on the pastures in the mountains in the summer. And now all the small streams, they dry up during the summer, and then they have to take down the cows, not take down, but back in the valley, even earlier, like in the middle of summer. And they asked Tiwag, the water hydropower company, if they could have a little bit more residual flow in the stream to kind of for the cows. And they said, no, you cannot get it. Your grandfathers gave us the water rights, and your kids or your grandkids can renegotiate. So people here have to be aware that we lose our right to our water and our resilience to climate change to this big company somehow. I mean, maybe that's an argument that some people will understand, or hopefully will understand. And I think that would be important to kind of also communicate, or we try to hopefully, a little bit communicate with the public,
Crazy.
Dramatic.
Maybe, Anna, one more thing. I wanted to come back to your idea earlier to connect with the activists for the mountain, let's say, or so, because I think Tyrol is a very special case, because we always think about how can we introduce ecotourism, but in Tyrol there's this commercial tourism, and I think that the bosses of these big ski resorts and so on, and they're maybe also part of the party in Tyrol, and they're really powerful people, right? Marieke, I don't know what you think, but
yeah.
It seems like in Tyrol there are sitting these old powerful guys, and they can just decide on whatever they want. So if we indeed link up with all the skiers and so on, I don't know, like if there's going to be a big community, or if they're just happy to have even more ski resorts. But definitely this is linked, because ski resorts need a huge amount of water and a huge amount of power, and the rivers might provide that in a sense.
Yeah, the problem is that the ski resorts, they get the water from Tiwag. So I mean, I'm also against additional ski resorts, but they kind of get good deals for water for the artificial snow with Tiwag. That's a little bit the problem. So I think they are no natural enemies. But I think the tourism lobby itself, I mean, that's, I think, a good idea to kind of connect with them, to kind of bring the message that this is a kayaking hotspot, the kayaking, like kayakers worldwide. But locals don't know that Tyrol is a great place to kayak. It sounds absurd, but many people here are not aware that the Ötztaler Ache is a great spot and that it's really important. And I think those are also people who kind of contribute to the economy. Also, there's this long distance biking trail, which is also directly going along the river. And summer tourism is also a big factor there. So, and when we say, okay, when the Ötztaler Ache looks, I don't know, it's already pretty crowded there in the valley, lots of buildings and so on. So, but the Ötztal still has this kind of wild atmosphere. So, yeah, when we kind of tell or kind of, yeah, we communicate also in tourism that it's important to kind of protect our assets, so to say. When we have a nature that looks really bad, nobody wants to go there. I don't know. Yeah, that's basic stuff.
Is this the controversial point you wanted to make, right, Ellie? Like, involving tourism is maybe actually not a good thing. It's quite scary. Marianne, you wanted to add something now? Okay. Yeah, Martin, I'm really curious that you have those discussions at uni. You're one of our researchers in Tirol.
Yeah, but I had another question not related to research right now. Yeah, first of all, thank you, Marieke, for like doing all of this. It's like super inspiring that you find this effort in Corona to like do something so positive.
And
but
thanks,
since
Dan, and thanks, Marianne, right?
Yeah, thanks to all of you, of course. I just had you on the big screen now, so the question was, since now like we are free or freer to move at least, is there any protest planned or anything, or do you think it's not helping because maybe not so many people would show up at all?
We have a cool plan, and Marianne can tell you.
Okay, we'll jump right in here. Yeah, we have a plan to make a protest. We start small with only one person on the photo from the Citizens Initiative because we are not allowed. Okay, can you hear me?
Sorry, Marianne, you need to. Yeah,
I don't know what is wrong with my mic today. I will try to plug it in. Do you hear me better now?
A little, yeah.
Okay, I will try to fix this. So we are doing an action in the Ötz Valley. We are starting small with only one person from the Citizens Initiative and showing a banner saying "Stop the hydropower plant." We want to do this in the beginning of May, and we are starting with only one person because we are not allowed to have more people close to each other at the moment. But as soon as we can, we are preparing a big protest, a demonstration with as many people as we can get, and try to raise the pressure on the government. And we're gonna need everyone who can or wants to join in this.
Yeah.
So I hope we can still do this in May, maybe in June.
Okay, cool.
Love to.
And yeah, I have another thing to say about what we talked to before, but first maybe Vera, what did you want to say?
No, I was just gonna say I would love to come over to protest and paddle, but
cool. Yeah, about paddling. Thank you for this bridge, because I just wanted to say that I live in Heiming, which is right at it's not in the Ötz Valley, but it's at the entrance of it. And this is like where I grew up, and both my siblings, I must say I'm a coward, but both my siblings did rafting, and I have been on the boat on the river always until I got scared. But I also have made the experience that the people here, the local people, don't have a clue about the value of the nature they have in front of their house. And I think it's a really great thing to show even the locals themselves the potential of their beautiful unspoiled nature. And I think this still has a lot of potential. I have hope in this, personally.
Cool. That's actually cool, because that's definitely something we're trying to do all around the world, right? Like connecting more people to nature, Marieke.
And maybe one more thing to what Martin just said. We will have this protest now, hopefully in May, and maybe a bigger one in June. But what we will definitely do, as definitely something can be done in Corona times, is this weekend in October, first weekend of October, where all the kayakers will come to Ötz Valley. And we already have plans to link up with the local farmers there. Yeah, and that's going to be a big one. if it's possible and this Corona thing is not makes it possible, then we will definitely have a lot of kayakers in the valley there, need all the locals, and we have the farmers, and it's gonna be pretty big. Yeah.
Cool.
Good luck.
Come over. I'm gonna tune out because my mom is gonna have dinner ready, and it's King's Day, so I have to celebrate with her. I fully forgot during everyone was still there to actually thank you guys, Marieke and Dan, and actually also Marianne for tuning in when Marieke couldn't really talk anymore, because this was really cool. Thanks for giving all your insights. I hope this was in some way helpful for some people's ideas, and that it helped in a way also to you. You're more than welcome to join next week. If you have ideas also about how to make this better, also welcome to tell me. And
yes, and on May 4th we'll have locals from Montenegro telling their stories, so it might be also interesting for you to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to see you again as well. So
yeah, you too.
Yay. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna go. You keep talking if you want. Bye bye.
I'm gonna go. I'm cooking chicken.
Hey, Vera, thank you.
Thank you.
They're gone.
Bye, Luigi.
Cheers, Dan. Ciao, Marieke. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Ciao, Luigi.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.